Hello everyone, welcome to a new video of martial politics. I haven't made a video in a while, but I am back with a video on a topic which I have touched in the past with my marijuana legalization video, which sort of touched on my opinion on criminal justice system and what I think needs to happen in terms of that. Uh, I believe I expressed the same sentiment as I did then, but my idea with the criminal justice system in America is really that all these calls for reform and for people to be for like bail reform and all this other nonsense that left wing progressives like to push for, it's really not beneficial for society at all. And to an extent, I do believe in rehabilitative justice only in very certain circumstances. I don't believe that rapists or murderers or any of these terrible people can never be allowed back into society. But I think definitely drug rehabilitation, that's 100% possible, and I do encourage that. Since I don't think the problem with drugs is in really the users, I think it's the people who profit by it. But anyways, I'm sure you all have heard of this case in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I think that's in southeastern Wisconsin, and a black man, I forgot his name, but Daryl something, might be wrong with that, but I don't even need to waste brain energy trying to remember his name. He decided that he's basically a black supremacist. Essentially, he hates white people, and he basically drove a car through a Christmas parade in Waukesha in Wisconsin. I believe this is only like I think this was only like 2 days ago or so, and I mean, this guy's a complete scumbag, and there's been a lot of people on Twitter who are obviously very angry with this. And I share their anger with this because I really have, I really don't have any sympathy for people who just decide to completely ruin people's lives. And recently, they announced that an 8-year-old recently died from their injuries, I believe yesterday. Um, so actually, which reminds me, this attack was like 3 days ago, so it was during the weekend. Um, But there's a lot of people in the mainstream media who are not talking about this for obvious reasons because it's a black guy who committed a race-based attack against white people in Wisconsin. And this comes just shortly after Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, where of course Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty. And people in the elite mainstream media really lost their minds about it, and they couldn't accept that they were just so angry just because Kyle Rittenhouse was white, and they called him a white supremacist, even though he didn't even kill white people, and he didn't kill any black people, and he none of nothing in the race had nothing in the event had anything to do with race. But they won't talk about this for obvious reasons again. And a lot of people have been calling for the death penalty, and I 100% agree with that. The conclusion. Uh, I don't believe there are a lot of people who will argue that the death penalty is unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment because it's a cruel and unusual punishment, even though at the time of the creation of the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution at that time, the death penalty was a very common punishment for capital crimes, aka murder, where you're taking another one's life. And a point that people will make against executions is that it's like inhumane and it costs so much money, as if that's even as if that's even an argument. I mean, our government spends hundreds of thousands, sorry, what am I even talking about, billions of dollars a day, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars on useless things, but we can't even afford to execute some scumbag. Like, it's ridiculous. That's why uh, I'm 100% in support of the death penalty. I think it's a necessary tool in a functioning society, because you can't just allow people who actively seek to destroy society to just, you know, be able to live in prison, at public expense, mind you, with taxpayers paying for their food and their living costs day by day, and they still get to roam this earth while their victims are dead, and they'll never be able, and their families will never live normal lives ever again like they did before. So, the people who oppose the death penalty, uh, you're wrong. You're just simply wrong. Um, and whoever thinks that it's unconstitutional, you're also an idiot, because if you look at actual constitutional history, the framers fully intended that punishments such as execution are 100% valid and viable in all capital cases. So that's basically my opinion on the death penalty. But there's a lot of people who do not share this sentiment, and you see this among, well, left-wing progressives and people in really the whole Democratic Party, actually, since criminal justice reform really benefits the whole Democratic Party as a whole, and really the wealthy as well. I mean, when Trump was president, he also pushed for criminal justice reform, to get black support, and look what happened with that. It was a complete disaster. And that was arguably one of the worst things probably one of the worst things Trump ever did, alongside a couple other stuff. But that's definitely one of the worst things he did. Just to get black votes, which didn't even really materialize. He was much more successful with Hispanics. Um, but it's really frustrating when you see people because in a point I made about in my marijuana legalization video, this policy that is promoted by Democratic progressives undermines the people they claim to represent, which is the working class. And high crime and instability in communities deeply hurt. It doesn't hurt the rich. It only hurts middle class people, or people who are not even middle class, who are, you know, a third class citizenry. And these people are their lives are going to be ruined by constant chaos in the streets. People who decide that they can just ruin other people's lives, kill people, loot small businesses, just cause unnecessary stress for communities all across America. And it really amazes me that Democratic progressives actually support this type of policy, since rich people don't really need to worry about some armed thug breaking into their house and committing robbery or murder. That's not really a concern for them, and it's really an issue that deeply affects the middle class. And it's an issue, again, where progressives are just completely wrong on. Even though I agree with them on a few other issues, they're absolutely wrong on this issue. And that is why, when you look at most political ideologies, because there are a lot of people who have really stupid people who follow very dumb ideologies, like all the Reaganites, the fiscal conservatives, and then you have the progressives who support policies that undermine uh, their own their own people they claim to represent. But then you look at national populism, and then it combines the best ideas from several different ideologies and puts it all into one, and it creates a healthier, much more functional society as a result. Um, but progressives will just continue to downplay this. That's why you see a lot of, left wing populists who are like, oh, the right wing populists are like fascists, but then they'll say like, oh, they don't even exist. There's all the right wing populists are frauds. They're all grifters, and they give no evidence, of course. But that's besides the point. Uh, the death penalty absolutely. By the way, just so you know, Wisconsin. Uh, I forget how long ago, but they basically got rid of the death penalty a couple years ago. Um, and it's really a huge mistake. And there are actually a lot of states that are ending the death penalties. I believe Virginia, I think their last execution was in 2017. California, like is like I'm pretty sure they're on the way to like getting it, but they haven't getting rid of it, but they haven't executed anyone like in I think death over a decade. And I believe New York also got rid of it. But a lot of big states have, Democratic states, and even Wisconsin, which is sort of a swing state, but now you're probably going to see a lot of movement to the right in the next couple of years. But if these people take power back in Wisconsin, then 100% death penalty needs to be reinstituted. Uh, and I think this guy, whatever his name is, this black guy, definitely needs to be executed for what he did, because it's completely unacceptable. Um, and I'm going to get to my last point here about criminal justice reform, um, where you also have Republican senators or whatever representatives who are pushing for this. Obviously, the most notable example is Tim Scott from South Carolina, who, along with Lindsey Graham, South Carolina arguably has the worst Senate delegation in the whole country. I mean, you have Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. I mean, how could it get any worse? Uh, these people are absolutely terrible, and I'm pretty sure Lindsey Graham also pushed for criminal justice reform. If I'm wrong, but I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure he pushed for it as well. And Tim Scott, I believe he was even at the ceremony when Trump was like signing I think it was the First Step Act, maybe like 2 years ago when Trump pardoned this black woman who was involved in basically a plot to ship in like a bunch of lethal, basically very terrible drugs into communities. I forgot, but it was definitely. I'm pretty sure it was in the South. And she was arrested. It was technically a non-violent crime since she didn't commit any violence, but Trump pardoned her, and she was basically gonna be in like prison like for basically the rest of her life. But Trump pardoned her, probably because of public pressure, because people are stupid. The same people who are calling for the for Julius Jones to be acquitted. Sorry, basically just for his for him to be let out of prison and people like that. Julius Jones is also another example of really just another vile person who just, I believe, I think it was somewhere, I believe it might have been in somewhere near Kansas or no, Missouri, somewhere around there. Um, and this guy killed the killed the father, and his both of his daughters saw it. And this guy was going to be sentenced to death in Missouri. No, Oklahoma. Now I remember in Oklahoma, but the governor commuted the death sentence recently. It might have been like a week ago or so. But absolutely, I mean, it is absolutely abysmal. Um, and that's why this is really the big issue with criminal justice system. We need reforms that actually punish criminals more than reward them. One of the biggest things, obviously, in states like New York, is bail reform, where you have people who are. It essentially puts caps on the amount of money for bail for certain crimes, um, quote unquote non-violent crimes. And this guy that committed this crime at this Waukesha Christmas Parade, I think he had only been released bail. I think it was only $1,000. I believe it was only like a couple days before this event happened. And there's like numerous examples. I believe last year there was like a huge there's like this huge all these cases about people in New York City who were basically released from prison and then on bail, and then they just committed crime again. They went back, then they got out again, then they committed a crime again right after that. And then you wonder, like, it's honestly just insane. And who does this benefit? The only people this benefits is of course, the ruling elite, people who have the most wealth and power in this country, because it's effectively uh, weakening the lower class of people and keeping them scared and frightened for their lives, really, and they can't live prosperous and normal lives if they're constantly under the threat of of if they think that a crime is going to be coming against them like anytime soon. If that's the case, then you're not going to have a functioning and normal society. But this case is just absolutely sad. I believe most of the people who died in this attack were all elders. So 6 people were killed, well over 60 were injured. How they fared depended on where each person or a group was positioned in the parade as the SUV barreled forward. 4 of the dead were with the dancing grannies, 3 dancers, and a volunteer helper. A woman who worked for Citizens Bank and was walking with co-workers in the group just behind the grandmothers also died Sunday, while an 8-year-old boy died Tuesday from his injuries. Also among the injured, members of a school marching band, a priest, youth baseball players, and young girls in a dance troupe. And the worst part about this is that this parade was actually canceled in the last year, obviously because of the pandemic, and they had just it was the first year back for them, and on that day it got completely ruined by this terrible man. Uh, what's his name? I'm trying to find his name real quick, but I mean, this guy's just an absolute scumbag. And if you see people who argue against the death penalty and say it's inhumane, it's just it's unusual or cruel, that's the same argument people push. Uh, just tell them about the stories, tell them about the victims, and just tell them how would you have reacted if your family member had been murdered by this individual. Would you support the death penalty? And I believe that is what happened in the 1988 presidential election with Michael Dukakis, who was the governor of Massachusetts. He was asked, "Would you support the death penalty for this?" I don't remember his name, but it was some guy that I believe was, I think, actually pardoned by Dukakis as governor of Massachusetts. Or he might have gone away in some way. He wasn't brought to justice, and he basically asked, "Would you support the death penalty if this guy murdered your wife?" And he said no. Um, and that really just shows to how really inhumane people are. The same people who are pro-choice are also pro-murder. Apparently, they just like they have like constant death and destruction, and these people are really evil, honestly. And I think you got to be honest with the people who support stuff like this. Like, are you even thinking clearly? Are you even uh, looking at this seriously? Do you even care about the victims at all? And the answer is really no. Well, we have to provide rehabilitative justice. Yeah, alright. Provide rehabilitation for the worst people in our society. I don't think so. And that is really why I made this video. This video isn't particularly long, but this is just a reiteration on my points about criminal justice and our criminal justice system and how it really needs to be reformed. How people like this man in Waukesha need to be punished, executed for their crimes, and how for other non uh, drug violations, the people who profit the most from these industries need to be punished, not the individuals. And that's basically my opinion on this issue. I know I'm pretty sure like almost all right-wing people agree with this point. It makes the most sense, really. If you claim to be a populist, you obviously, want to support policies that are going to benefit regular people and get terrible people off the streets in this country. And yeah, that is all for this video. Like and subscribe for more. And if you want, if you have any questions, or maybe you want to follow me on Twitter or something, been posting a lot of based memes recently. Blake Masters and JD Vance, obviously. Uh, Senator Blake Masters, Senator JD Vance, inevitable. Yeah, you can follow me on there and check out what I've been doing on there. But yeah, if you have any questions or some sort of criticism, or maybe something you want to add, or maybe you just want to I guess praise me, I guess, for this video, then you're free to do so. And I hope you all have a nice Thanksgiving tomorrow. And I'll see you all probably in the next video. Maybe it will be next week, approximately. I'll probably make a new video about Senate races. So, see you guys soon, and have a good day, and see you in the next video. Farewell.